good morning from Universal Orlando Resort. Today is August 1st. In just 1 month, on September 1st, Halloween Horror Nights begins. And we begin haunt season. So today I figured we would come out here to Universal Studios Florida, kind of walk around, show you where the scare zones are going to be, what the backstories of the scare zones are, and also show you where we believe the haunted houses entrances are going to be, and tell you the haunted house's story. And we'll also show you where Nightmare Fuel is and things like that. But a lot to cover today, so let's go inside and get started. So the first thing that we should mention about Halloween Horror Nights is that it is a very popular event. So right here, starting on September 1st, on select nights through October 31st, there will be very large crowds gathering underneath these arches, waiting for the gates to open to Halloween Horror Nights for the evening. So be prepared. Arrive here early and get ready for crowds, because it is a very, very popular event. So the first scare zone that we come across right as soon as we enter into the gates is Dr. Oddfellow's Collection of Horrors. Dr. Oddfellow will lure you into Halloween Horror Nights with a promise of immortality as he lifts the veil on all of the horrors to come. You'll soon realize you may not even survive the night. So the only thing that we see in this scare zone currently is this truss work right here, which we believe will be maybe a neon sign welcoming to Halloween Horror Nights. And this truss has actually moved forward from last year. Last year, it was about where that Minions, or where VillainCon is now. And that leads us to believe that they're hoping to leave this area clear for people to ride VillainCon during Halloween Horror Nights. And the scare actors, instead of being there in Production Central, in between the two buildings, or in Minions Land now, in between the two buildings, will be kind of moved forward here to the front of the park, closer to Today Cafe, which will be nice because Today Cafe is a Stay and Scream, or was a Stay and Scream location last year. And because it was a Stay and Scream location last year, we could get like a view of the opening ceremonies, because they would kind of start back there by Despicable Me and then work their way all the way up to the gates. But with this archway being here, kind of hoping that they kind of stay underneath the archway in this general vicinity so that people at Today Cafe for Stay and Scream get a really good view of the show. And so the idea of this scare zone is that the icon, they haven't called him an icon, but I'm calling him an icon of the event this year, Dr. Oddfellow, is welcoming you in and kind of giving you a preview of the different monsters and characters that you will encounter throughout the rest of the park. It is the collection that he has made of all of the different things that are happening throughout the park. So you'll see characters from each scare zone and possibly characters from the houses in this area. A lot of people stop here, take photos on the way in, just get excited for the event. There will also be the opening ceremonies happening here, which is when the event first opens, Dr. Oddfellow himself will come out and probably make an announcement saying that he is offering you immortality, but in all reality, he just wants you to, he just wants to take your soul and increase his immortality and his power. But he lures you in with the promise of immortality, and in order to grant you immortality, he needs to show you the horrors of Halloween Horror Night in order to kind of put you off your game and break your connection with reality. He is saying that that will help make it so that you can drink from the elixir and be immortal with him. But in all reality, he is making it so that he can take your soul. So, there you go. Now, this name, Dr. Oddfellow, we have heard it before. And some of you guys that are not like really into the history of Halloween Horror Nights might not have heard of it. Some of you guys might be going into this blind. So I kind of wanted to give you like a real quick explanation of who Dr. Oddfellow is. So Dr. Oddfellow ran a carnival called the Carnival of Thrills. And at that carnival, he employed Jack Schmidt. Jack Schmidt famously became Jack the Clown, who is one of the event's biggest icons, most famous icons. Spooky clown. His name is Jack. You guys have probably seen him before. So Jack worked at Dr. Oddfellow's carnival, and Jack had a thing for killing little kids. So he killed 13 kids, and then the police and the FBI were like, wait a second, we gotta find this guy. And they were getting closer and closer. Because they were getting closer, he turned to his employer, Dr. Oddfellow, and said, hey, buddy, we gotta do something, the cops are coming. But Dr. Oddfellow is a nefarious fellow as well. So he said, wait, I can't have the cops showing up here. So he killed Jack. But in doing so, there was a little bit of a struggle, and Jack scratched Dr. Oddfellow's face. And Dr. Oddfellow's blood went into Jack's blood and they mixed. And at this point, Dr. Oddfellow was in the process of becoming immortal through a sacrificial ceremony where he was sacrificing various patrons of his carnival and using the dark Zodiac and the signs of the Zodiac in order to harness this power that will make him immortal. And on the night that Dr. Oddfellow became immortal is the night that he killed Jack, shoved him in the box. That is why Jack is also immortal, because he kind of took some of Dr. Oddfellow's blood, some of his immortal blood, and became immortal. So they are at odds at this point. Jack does come back and kill Dr. Oddfellow in later years. He kills Dr. Oddfellow, takes his coat, takes his cane, which is called the Cane of Souls, and we believe that that has something to do with Dr. Oddfellow and Jack's powers. Is this Cane of Souls a magical piece, a magical item that they have, and that helps with their immortality and their various powers. Another power that Dr. Oddfellow has is the power of shape-shifting. He can make himself fit into any environment and look in any way that he wants to, but there is a certain thing that never goes away, and that is the scar from when Jack scratched his face. So as you're walking around Halloween Horror Nights, you might see a character with a scar on his face. That would be Dr. Oddfellow in a different form. So I know this is a lot to take in, and there's way, way, way more to that story. Like, how did Dr. Oddfellow come back if Jack killed him? He didn't actually die. He went to the Dark Realm, and through the powers of the Zodiac and through the Cane of Souls, he was able to come back from the Dark Realm. So like I said, a lot of lore around this character and a lot to take in. But that was a summary, and I know that was long, but that was just a summary of the backstory of Dr. Oddfellow. If you'd like to learn more about Dr. Oddfellow, Universal has released a podcast about like the first part of an anthology. As of today, it was only one part out of an anthology of the history of Dr. Oddfellow. They also have 3 reveal podcasts on the Discover Universal podcast where they go through all the haunted houses and all the scare zones, and that gives you even more information about Dr. Oddfellow's past. So there is a lot of information out there, but this was just a little quick taste because you guys kind of need to know who Dr. Oddfellow is, being as he is the icon, and he has his hand there. He shows up in every single place that is not an intellectual property around here. So all of the original haunted houses and all the scare zones have Dr. Oddfellow's hand in them. So that being said, let's move on to the next scare zone. So I think that the most succinct and easy to follow way to show off and talk about everything Halloween Horror Nights is to go through all the, go around the park once, talk about all the scare zones, then go around the park a second time to talk about the houses. So here at the entrance, before we get into Minion Land, we've just gone through the opening scare zone, Dr. Oddfellow's collection of horrors, and we are headed to the right into Hollywood. Here in the Hollywood section of the park, we have the scare zone called Dark Zodiac. Dr. Oddfellow has entered a dark dimension to harness the power of the Zodiac and live forever. He twists the signs into malevolent beings who foretell your doom. As his star rises, yours falls. As of right now, there's not a lot to look at in the Dark Zodiac scare zone. Just a couple of lighting structures and some lights up on the ceiling or up on the roofs of these buildings out here. Of course, there is the Five and Dime located in the Hollywood section, and this is where they'll have the merchandise for Halloween Horror Nights. They'll have it everywhere, but right now they're selling it early. So one of the intellectual property houses that we'll be talking about later is the Exorcist Believer, and you can see they have some of the merch here for Exorcist Believer. And then there's some Chucky merch and some Classic Monsters merch over here. Let's see if there's anything else. Chucky, Classic Monsters, and then Stranger Things on the back here. Something else that is in this section of the park currently is the Jurassic Park Tribute Store. This will be closing soon to make way for the Halloween Horror Nights Tribute Store. We don't know where the Halloween Horror Nights Tribute Store is going to be, if it's going to be here in Hollywood or if it's going to be back over in New York. There was a little piece of information in the Tribute Store for Jurassic Park that kind of led us to believe it might be in New York. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is the hint that I was talking about. You can see Tribute to Terror, and it says horror on it. It's like a little comic book. It says Halloween Horror Nights. And then here, the address is in New York. So maybe the tribute store will be back in New York. Like I said, we don't know. This could just be a little hint to throw us off. So one of the things that's interesting about the graphics here in the Dark Zodiac Scare Zone is it's a lot of circles and lines. And Dr. Oddfellow uses a specific symbol that is circles and lines in order to harness the power of the Zodiac to increase his power and become immortal. Now this texture here on the bottom of this lighting tower is not that symbol, but it's very similar. So that's very interesting. A lot of circles in the Zodiac. So I'm seeing a lot of circles in this as well. And as we pass Mel's Diner, we're heading into the Central Park area of the park. And this is where we will find Jungle of Doom Expedition Horror. In the 1920s, Dr. Oddfellow ventured deep into the darkest jungle, performing horrific experiments on nature. Now his monstrous creations are running amok and are coming after you. So another part of the story here of this scare zone is that Dr. Oddfellow is looking for the crystal skull in order to perform his ritual that we heard about at the beginning of this video to try to become immortal using the Zodiac. And so this crystal he finds in the 1920s, he doesn't perform his immortality sacrifice until 1939. So you can start to see the timeline here. And we are traveling through lots of decades during this video because Dr. Oddfellow has been alive for a long time because he is immortal. He has inside him the blood of the dark Zodiac. And one of the theories about the Cane of Souls, which we talked about earlier, is that Dr. Oddfellow put the crystal skull in the top of the Cane of Skulls, making the cane itself a mystical object that helps increase his power. Not a lot to see in this scare zone other than some speakers, some lighting towers, and some fog machines. A few prop pieces towards the front, but other than that, that's all that we're seeing here. So as we leave the Central Park section of Universal, we're starting to head into kind of a safe zone through Springfield. There are no scare zones in here. In years past, this has been the location of roaming hordes, and we did hear a rumor that Megan was going to have a flash mob here this year, Megan the murderous robot, and there is a lighting tower here, so it could still be a location for a flash mob style Megan horde, but it's not been announced on any of the official channels. Another reason for these lighting towers here could be because in years past, this has been a location for Stay and Scream here in Springfield. So Stay and Scream is a way for you to kind of get in line first for a haunted house. The way that it works is if you have a day ticket to the park, so of course Halloween Horror Nights is a separately ticketed event. So if you have a day ticket to the park or an annual pass, or if you buy what they call Scream Early, which is kind of like a lower price ticket that you're only here for half the day, or for like the end half of the day. So when they close down the park for the day, and there's that little bit of time in between the hours of operation for Universal Studios and Halloween Horror Nights, you get to stay in the park in what they call a corral. Like we said, there's one up at the Today Show Cafe, or Today Cafe. There's one back here in Springfield, and those locations will take you. For Today Cafe, there's not a house that it went to last year. It just kind of was there so that you could watch the opening ceremonies, which is what we were showing at the front of the park with Dr. Oddfellow coming out and kind of like trying to draw you in to the park and all of the different characters that are from different areas around the park. So in the front of the park at Today Cafe, you might not go to a house. You'll probably just there to see the opening ceremonies. In the back here for Springfield, you'll probably go to one of the houses that's located back here, but you do go to one specific house. Everybody in that corral goes to one specific house. And then there's another one over in New York that takes you to another house, and that one's over by Finnegan's. There actually have been years past where there's been two in New York, taking you to different houses, one in the front of the park and one in the New York area. So we'll show you that when we get over to the New York section and talk about that. So like I said, as of right now, the Springfield section is a safe section of the park with nothing being announced to be going on here. They have had roaming hordes in years past here, but nothing has been announced for here this year. Now we've made it through Springfield and we are back here by Men in Black. And there isn't anything as far as scare zones back here, but there will be entrances to houses here. And like I said, we're gonna kind of split this video into a couple of parts where we talk about all the scare zones first, and we'll come back and we'll talk about houses and where they could possibly be after we're done with the scare zones. So here at the back of the park, as we make our way past Men in Black, we come across this stage, and this is what we call the old Fear Factor stage. And at this stage, during Halloween Horror Nights, they will be having what is called Nightmare Fuel Revenge Dream. The show that sparked your darkest dreams has reignited. Let your nightmares burn out of control as the pyro and aerial performers fire you up to the beat of metal and electronica. So, we don't have any other information about this show other than that. It's going to be pyro and aerialists and illusions and things like that. It'll probably be a little bit different than it was in years past. Maybe they changed the storyline a little bit, but the basic idea is the same in the fact that there will be pyro and aerialists and illusions. A lot of risque dancers too. It's a fun show. So we came out from the Fear Factor stage. You can see Men in Black over here. Simpsons is off to my right and the London waterfront is off to my left. And the whole reason we're standing out here is because of this lighting tower right here. It's got huge lights pointed in this direction towards the ground over here. Now, in years past there have been photo ops here, but I feel like this year they are focusing a little bit more on some of the food offerings. And this is a prime location for some food offerings right here. You've got water, you've got drain, you got power. Put a food truck right here, a food booth here, you put one over there. Boom, Halloween Horror Nights exclusive food. Also, we have heard rumors, nothing official has been announced, that maybe we would see some Death Eaters in Diagon Alley. But like I said, nothing's been announced. We'll see when the event shows up. It might not ever get announced. They might just be there on opening night of Halloween Horror Nights. So as we've made it around the London waterfront, then we turn towards San Francisco. And speaking of food and drink offerings specific to Halloween Horror Nights, you can see this archway right here. We believe that this will be a food offering or a bar. So as we head a little bit deeper into the San Francisco section of the park, we come across Shipyard 32, Horrors Unhinged. Enter a 1940s San Francisco shipping yard full of mysterious crates and cages bearing Dr. Oddfellow's symbol. Beware, his nightmarish oddities have now escaped, spreading fear and chaos in their wake. This particular prop kind of looks like there will be something popping out from inside of it. Maybe a puppet or something large and spooky. Because that whole section right there is open. So this blue box has a cover on the top of it, but this one up here is open, like something could come out of that. You never know. Interesting feature on this one is like a paint bucket that has something that you can look inside of in there, maybe? Maybe there'll be a light inside of there or something? I don't know. Maybe you'll see some creature inside of this box. It seems interesting. I don't see any plugs or anything as of right now. I'm wondering what's gonna happen here. I love the ingenuity of Scenic though. You know, plastic pallets, a paint bucket, 5-gallon bucket right here, some rusty nails. These are those railings for when you're, you know, those bathroom railings for holding on during in the handicap stalls. Theme park pigeon walking through the scare zones, trying to figure it out and looking a little feral. So as we leave San Francisco, we're heading towards New York, where we will be heading into the last scare zone, and then we will start going through the houses. And the last scare zone here in the New York section of the park is Vamp 69, Summer of Blood. At a 60s music festival in a small New York town, you'll jam to popular bands with fellow concertgoers until Dr. Oddfellow unleashes vicious vampires on the audience. They're out for your blood. And this is the largest set piece in this scare zone. It's the stage for the music festival. You can see some of the names of the bands over here. Some of the musical instruments are out. And then you remember I was talking about the Dr. Oddfellow symbol with some circles and lines? Here it is in the center of the backdrop back there. And so this scare zone is interesting because it's vampires, right? Not Dr. Oddfellow. How is Dr. Oddfellow controlling the vampires? He used some of his powers of persuasion to convince a vampire horde that it was time to feed. And during this feed, he killed and stole the power of one of the most powerful vampires in order to increase his power, increase his immortality, and increase his power of seduction in order to control people and summon people further in and steal souls. So one of the things that's interesting about Dr. Oddfellow, like we said, he is able to shapeshift. That is one of the ways that he was able to gain the trust of the vampires, is by shapeshifting into a vampire called Urlo Wolf. And he was able to make his way onto the Vampire Council and convince them that they needed to have another big feed. And the big feed that he convinced them of was here at the music festival in 1969. And they all came and they had a big feed, vampires everywhere feeding on them. And that is where Dr. Oddfellow made his move in order to take control of the most powerful vampire and take his power away from him as his own. That powerful vampire's name was Olato. I don't know if that is important to any stories anywhere around, but just keep that in mind if you're coming to the event. Olato, you never know, you might hear that. This is definitely one of those locations where I'm sure we will see Dr. Oddfellow in a different form, in his Urlo Wolf form, his vampire form, and he won't look like Dr. Oddfellow, but we'll still be able to recognize him by the scar on his face from where Jack the Clown scratched him when he was killing Jack the Clown. So now we're back up at the front of the park, back at the entrance to the park, and we're gonna go over some Halloween Horror Nights houses now, some haunted houses. Unlike scare zones, there is nothing telling us where these houses are going. Universal hasn't announced it. What we're going off of right now is pure speculation, and we're using a map from Horror Night Nightmares, the Twitter account Horror Night Nightmares. They have a pretty good grasp on where things could possibly be. Once again, I wanted to put a little disclaimer in here. The location of the houses could change from this video to the start of the event, but what is happening in the houses, the actual houses themselves and the descriptions will be the same, because these are the actual descriptions from Universal Orlando, and the houses have been announced from Universal Orlando. So we're gonna go through the descriptions of all the houses, but like I said, we're just gonna kind of guess on where the entrances to those will be. And we're gonna kind of go opposite from the way that we went with the scare zones. So with the scare zones, we turned right here towards Hollywood. For us, we're gonna start over here next to Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. And to the left of Minion Mayhem is where we believe we will find the entrance to Yeti Campground Kills. And the storyline behind Yeti Campground Kills is that you and your friends venture into a 1950s campsite where giant Yetis are ripping apart everybody that they find. And your only way out is to find your way to the ranger station, the ranger tower. So, I think that's what we can look forward to. We look forward to lots and lots of gigantic Yetis, super, super tall Yetis, terrorizing you as you walk through a 1950s campsite. Very excited for this. This is an original idea for a house, and we have had Yeti houses in the past. This one, I like the idea of it being from the 1950s. So this is where we believe the entrance to Yeti Campground Kills will be. And the entrance to that house could possibly be to the left of Despicable Me Minion Mayhem. We are continuing our way through Minion Land to try to find the entrance to the next house. And as we make it to the other side of Despicable Me Minion Mayhem, we are in Music Plaza, and we typically have an entrance portal right here in this vicinity, and that we believe will lead us into The Exorcist Believer. And the interesting thing about this house is that it is based off of a movie that has not come out yet. It doesn't come out until the end, closer to the end of Halloween Horror Nights. So the way that Universal has described it is that you're gonna be walking through a living trailer for the movie before it comes out. Very interesting. I'm excited to see that. So with this house, it says, 2 missing girls have been found with no memory of where they've been, but wherever they went, they brought back with them the ultimate evil, possession. It doesn't say possession, but I thought I would add that little bit of flair to it because, as we all know, this is an exorcist movie and you only exorcise possessed demons. So they brought back a demon. This is a new Blumhouse film, like I said, coming out towards the end of the Halloween Horror Nights run. And from Music Plaza, we're heading deeper into New York. And at the end of the road here, we actually have 3 different house entrances. And historically, there are 3 different house entrances located at the end of the street here in New York. The first house entrance typically enters through the front door of Jimmy Fallon's Race Through New York, and we believe that that one will be Blood Moon Dark Offerings. It is described as, in a colonial era village, some moon worshippers witness a blood moon. They take it as a sign to hunt down any non-followers, including you and your Scream Squad! So look out. Keep your Scream Squad close. You don't want to mess with the moon worshippers. And then right here, before we get to the New York Public Library, just underneath Rip Ride Rocket, we have the entrance to both Stranger Things 4 and Dueling Dragons. So this is for Stranger Things 4. It says you'll need your entire squad to stop Vecna's gruesome curse. Like 11, you'll use this opportunity to stop him once and for all as you make your way through the scariest season of Stranger Things yet. Very excited for this one. I thought that this season of Stranger Things was the best one. Can't wait to see Eddie playing guitar. I can't wait to see Chrissy. That's where they say that's where it starts, is where Chrissy is in the home and she is being taken over by Vecna. So, be a lot of contorted bodies and a lot of, I'm sure, Metallica and some Kate Bush. And we get to see everybody. 11, Max, everybody. We'll see the entire gang. I just hope that we get to see Argyle. That's all that I want to see. Argyle and Surfer Dude Pizza. Can't wait. So the next one is Dueling Dragons. And what happens is 2 warlocks try to steal Merlin's spellbook, and they're turned into dragons, and then you're caught in the middle of their epic battle. Now that description to me is a little bit confusing because it doesn't tell me if you're in between the 2 dragons battling or if you're in between the dragons battle with Merlin. The interesting thing about this house is that it is rumored to have multiple endings and multiple paths that you can take, and you choose your own fate, and the victor as far as who wins in the house. If it's one of the dragons, if it's Merlin, I don't know. We'll have to wait for the event to find out. I'm very excited for this house. From what I've heard, it is based on Dueling Dragons, the roller coaster, which is now where Hagrid sits. There used to be a roller coaster there called Dueling Dragons, and there were 2 dragons. There was fire and ice, and that's what I believe those warlocks have been turned into, is the fire dragon and the ice dragon. But like I said, we will have to wait for the event to happen to find out officially what is happening there. All right, now we are continuing our way through New York and heading towards Fast and Furious Supercharged. Yeah, we turn from New York towards San Francisco, but off on the left here we see Fast and Furious Supercharged, and this will be the location of an entrance to a house, and that house could possibly be Chucky Ultimate Kill Count. So I thought this was such an interesting idea for a Halloween Horror Nights house. So the day after Halloween Horror Nights ended last year, or even maybe the last day, they announced that Chucky was coming to Halloween Horror Nights 2023 in the form of a haunted house. And so they built this haunted house, and they contacted Chucky, the actual doll Chucky, and they said, hey, Chucky, come on down, promote this haunted house. So he came down and he took one look at it and he said, wait a second, this is all fake. You guys are not actually killing anybody. It's all pretend. And he took great offense to that. So he has hijacked his own haunted house, and he has possessed all of the Chucky dolls that Universal has made and made them join him in killing off the people coming through the house, you, the visitor, and also the attraction operators, the designers, the people that were leading him through the attraction, showing him like, well, here's where it's gonna be, that he got so angry at because the kills weren't actually real kills. And so he is really racking up his kill count by just having people come into the house as a ruse. They're like, oh, it's a fun game, like it's a fun pretend haunted house. No, Chucky's in there, he's gonna get you. So there you go, Chucky Ultimate Kill. As we walk through San Francisco, we've got 4 houses left to find the locations of the entrances of them. But these last 4 are the 4 that I personally am the least sure about the location of their like house entrance. Like I said, we were going off a speculation map, so I'm really just saying what they're speculating the entrance map or the entrance location is going to be. But the few factors here. So we used to have a house in Shrek, that is now Despicable Me Villain Con. We used to have 2 house entrances back in Kid Zone. That is now under construction to turn into DreamWorks. So we kind of like lost a few house entrance locations. So this has never been done before. Like these house locations have never been where they are before. So this may change. Like these last 4 might change when the event actually comes. So with that being said, stay tuned to the channel because we will be back once they start putting up the entrance portals, and we will have a better idea of where the actual entrances are going to be, like a concrete idea of where they're going to be. Once again, this is our best guess as to where they might be. All right, so we've made it through the London waterfront, and we're making our way a little bit further around. We're passing by the Fear Factor stage. Once we get past the Fear Factor stage, that's when we start talking about houses. So just to the right of the Fear Factor stage are these gates right here, and those lead backstage, and these have been the location of a house entrance in years past, and I believe that we've had two house entrances here before as well. So the first house that we think is going to go here is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins, and you won't be able to resist going inside and seeing his twisted oddities, but the cost to get in is steep. It is you and your friend's souls. Now this one is really interesting because this particular house takes place the night that Dr. Oddfellow becomes immortal. So you're entering in underneath the bleachers, kind of like a backstage tour type thing. Then things start to get a little bit weird. You start to see sacrificial like offerings, killings, sacrificial killings, and people kind of mutilated to be like the Zodiac signs. You'll see somebody with an arrow through their head for Sagittarius. You'll see like a mermaid goat person, lots and lots of weird, person with claws, somebody that sort of looks like a scorpion, things like that, because what's happening is Dr. Oddfellow is performing a ritual calling on the powers of the dark Zodiac in order to give himself immortality. This is also the night that Dr. Oddfellow kills Jack the Clown, and Jack the Clown scratches his face mixing his blood with Jack's blood, making Jack immortal as well. And apparently we get to see a little bit of that in this house. We get to see like a little silhouette projected somewhere of the fight between the two of them and Jack ultimately meeting his fate. So we think, before he comes back. So yeah, that's the first house that we believe is gonna go here, is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. This one I'm excited for because this should give a lot of backstory to a lot of Halloween Horror Nights lore. And I like that. It also kind of goes more into Dr. Oddfellow and what he's doing and what his goal is and why he wants to become immortal. Also, I'm excited to see Dr. Oddfellow. So the next house that we are trying to find the entrance for is called The Darkest Deal, and that entrance could also be here next to Dr. Oddfellow's, or it could be over here at Men in Black using the line that goes through the extended queue to go backstage. There is a tent back here. We don't know if that's going to be the actual house or if that's just a storage tent and maybe the house location is somewhere else. We don't know because there is no facade gone up over here yet. See, we're close enough to Halloween Horror Nights that we would be able to see a facade back here, and we're not seeing one. So this could be like an employee break room or something like that, and we might just go around it to go back to the sprung tents back here or the parade building. So for The Darkest Deal, blues musician Pinstraw Spruce will have to face the music after meeting with the Collector and trading his soul for musical glory. You and your squad will find out the true price of fame. I'm excited for this one because it's kind of based on a little bit of a true story. So Robert Johnson is a famous blues guitarist who kind of got really good somewhat overnight. I'm sure it wasn't just overnight, but like the legend goes that it was like one day he was just okay, the next day amazing. And so people thought that he sold his soul to the devil to be able to play guitar so amazingly. So I think that there's some loose basis between Robert Johnson and Pinstraw. So I'm excited for that one because I like the idea of Robert Johnson and having sold his soul to the devil for musical glory. Or Pinstraw. I like Pinstraw. I like the name Pinstraw too. So as we pass by Men in Black, in years past, there have been house entrances and exits over here. So there could be one here, there could be one here. This is the only place that has trusses as of yet. And so maybe one of those two that we just mentioned, either Oddfellow or The Darkest Deal, could be over here as well. But we're thinking that the Last of Us entrance will be here. So this haunted house is based off of the very first Last of Us game for PlayStation, and you are going to follow Joel and Ellie as you kind of navigate the overgrown world with all the fungus and everything of The Last of Us. But make sure you stay quiet if you want to avoid clickers and hunters and all the other monsters that you could encounter from The Last of Us. So if you've played the video game, I have a feeling you are going to love this because it should follow the plot of the video game precisely. Now, if you're a fan of the show, it may be a little bit different than the show, but I think you will recognize some elements from the show as they were kind of ported over from the video game, because the show is based off the video game. They did take some liberties, but this is specifically based on the video game for PlayStation, The Last of Us. Continuing our way through the park, passing through Springfield. Like I said before, nothing in Springfield. So we're gonna pass right through Springfield. So we've made it through Springfield, and in years past, there have been 2 house entrances in Kid Zone. But as you can see, the majority of Kid Zone is behind walls and under construction, so I don't think we're gonna have any house entrances back there. So now we're on the lookout to try to figure out where the last house entrance will be. We're making our way through Central Park, heading up to Hollywood. Now that we've made it up to Hollywood, one of the last locations that is a large area to get backstage that could lead us to, haunted houses is here at the Esoteric Gate. So the speculation is that the entrance to Universal Classic Monsters Unmasked will be here at the Esoteric Gate. So this house starts as you descend into the Paris catacombs, where you'll meet Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man, and then you will make your way out further into Paris and you'll meet some of the Paris residents, such as the Hunchback of Notre Dame and the Phantom of the Opera. So those are those 4 classic monsters that you will meet in this house. And these are not the typical more famous monsters, but I'm very excited to see these because I feel like these monsters don't get as much attention as they deserve. So Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Invisible Man, Phantom of the Opera and the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm excited for it. Should be good. Like I said, could possibly have an entrance here at the Esoteric Gate. And there you have, that was all 10 houses that are coming to Halloween Horror Nights this year with their speculative locations of their entrances. Stay tuned to the channel. We will be back for sure to try to find out where the actual entrances will be once they start putting up the entrance portals, which are the wait times and the signs saying what is going where, basically. So, stay tuned. We will be on the lookout for those as the season continues, as we get closer to the start of Halloween Horror Nights. So there you have it. That was our trip out to Universal Studios Florida to go over everything Halloween Horror Nights this year. We went through all of the scare zones, all their locations, went through all the houses and all their possible locations. We talked about the show, talked a little teeny tiny bit about the food. More on that will be coming next week, but I'm very excited. I'm very excited for Last of Us. I'm very excited for Classic Monsters, very excited for Dr. Oddfellow, excited to explore the storyline a little bit more throughout the entire event. I don't know, I'm just all around excited for this year. At first I wasn't. Like, I wasn't really into it because they hadn't announced anything. Now that they've announced it, woo, I'm excited. I'm ready. I'm ready for Halloween, because Halloween is starting now. So, all in all, a fantastic day. And like I said, stay tuned for more Halloween Horror Night stuff. As the event comes closer, we'll be coming back to do more construction updates and more updates to our possible house location entrances, possible house entrance locations as we get closer to the event. So, all in all, a fantastic day. And with that being said, we are off. We'll see you all tomorrow.
Hi guys, I'm Anthony's Vlogs from Orlando. Check out my YouTube channel if you guys want. Spooky season is just 1 month away, and now it's time to pay the price.